Everything in our fleet, everything is treated exactly the same from the first mile to the millionth mile. And we view preventative maintenance as kind of the way to keep the tool to keep equipment healthy. If somebody were to pull a new truck in, or we have a new truck come in, the first thing we do is give it a PM.
Hi, this is Tom Weirs, bringing you the Trucks Roll podcast. Today we have part 2 with Kurt Dunn from Pitt, Ohio. We're going to be talking to Kurt about his unique role within the organization. You said you'd mentioned you were a technician, but give us a little more background about Kurt and how he came up through the ranks here and what you're doing. You're not working on trucks and trying to make the maintenance programs better.
Absolutely. So been with the company 15 years, and it's been a roller coaster. I mean, it's been a fun one, I should say, a fun roller coaster. I mean, I started at our Allentown terminal as a mechanic. Had some time there as a lead mechanic, spent 11 years in the shop, just right in the heat of it. And, whenever I talk about this story, because I feel like the pup, whenever we have these conversations, I feel like, because I've only been in the industry 18 years and, just coming up through. But when I was in the shop, we were just getting emissions. And, I know the basis is talking about preventative maintenance, but it was like everything we could do. I mean, it was, the truck would go to a dealership, and it was just, we didn't know at that point. There were so many mysteries with it. We talk about the BEVs, and I feel like that's going to be another time like emissions. But, so I was in the shop for 11 years with Pitt, Ohio. And, I grew to love emissions. I know it sounds crazy, and I probably need a psych eval after that one, but I grew to love diagnosing emissions. And this position came up, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to shoot for the stars. I'm going to send it. And I got it. I got the technical advisor position. So I moved from Allentown to Pittsburgh. And it was kind of off when my wife was actually 8 months pregnant when we moved. So off a whim, I said, let's go to Pittsburgh. Let's try this. Let's see what we can do. So, hopped onto the roller coaster. I mean, riding that technology roller coaster for the last 4 years has been awesome, has been scary. I mean, technology moves so quick that what you know today, 3 months from now, it's going to be different. It's going to change, and you got to be able to adapt.
And you get a firsthand look at that on a daily basis. So that's, to hear you say that helps remind us all how dynamic it is, and keeping a truck on the road is, it's almost rocket science these days.
It almost is. It almost is, especially you start throwing ADAS and some of the safety systems and those computers in.
Yeah. Kurt, what role are the technicians playing in this journey with you guys? I imagine, they're out there touching the equipment. I know you work closely with them. So what have you seen with the technician involvement? What have they shared with you that you probably weren't thinking about?
So we do. I'm going to step back and talk a little bit of the training program, because what we have. Sure. I talked about the training program that goes with the technical advisor role, and this is all going to play in. We do what we call tech calls. So depending on if we have an initiative like the PM initiative we pushed out, the tech calls is where we'll put that information out to the techs. And what we found out really quick of this is we were pushing information out to them like, hey, we've noticed this, and we're going to start looking a little bit deeper into this part or this system. And the technicians were bringing stuff back to us. It gives them that microphone that says, hey, we're listening. And there was a really good transition of information from the technicians to us and then back as we started working through this process. And that was part of why the process took so long, as we were really diving in. And the technicians play a huge role. They get to see the equipment. They get eyes on. I mean, as much as you can look at data and you can look at the stuff, I mean, it really comes down to putting your hands on the part, getting there on that piece of equipment and saying, okay, like, is this bad or is this still good? And the technicians are always able to validate that information for us. And they put the new schedule to work. They put it to work, and they're going to ultimately prove its effectiveness.
Right.
If they do good quality PMs, which we have a lot of pride in our technicians for doing that, we're going to see the results here real soon. Yeah,
that's fantastic having their involvement. Have the drivers played any role in this initiative? They have not.
Okay. Our drivers, our operations department is great. and they do a great job of pre-inspections and stuff. But our drivers haven't really played any role in the actual
Okay.
PM program.
So they're participating through the driver write-ups and letting the folks know what's wrong with the trucks and such, and then the technicians are taking it from there.
Yep. And the technicians will relay those write-ups to us as if we maybe pushed a part too far, they'll relay that.
Okay. So as you're working on your preventive maintenance and getting that improving, how do you determine what equipment you're keeping in your shops for repair, and what? And we talked a little bit about this at TMC. When to outsource? Do you try to keep most of it in? Are you doing any outsourcing?
So we do. We definitely do some outsourcing. I mean, and we did have a great conversation on this. And it's important to keep those outsourced partners close and understand their philosophy towards it. Now, talking preventative maintenance, we like to keep most of it in-house. And it's a preference of ours just because we learn so much. I've been sharing about the data. If you see the same truck, we only run a few different specs. If you see that same truck every day, you're fixing that same model truck every day, you start to understand where some of the fail points may be. Right. Every manufacturer has them. It's just you start to understand what that manufacturer's fail points are. And that's why we like to keep preventative maintenance in-house. Now, there is a lot of stuff that we will, or some stuff that we will push out, depending on level, like technical level, depending on if we have the tooling. It's just one thing that, now is not the time to learn a new job, to learn a new skill set. And even in that point, if it was a preventative maintenance thing, if there was a new truck that we brought into the fleet, we would work very close with OEM support, dealer support, and reps to really understand that truck front to back, top to bottom, to make sure that we were able to prevent the maintenance, do the best job preventing maintenance. Because if you don't understand the full operation of that truck and how it works, maintaining it, you may miss something that seems small, but in a couple PM cycles, it may end up being something that, ends up coming back to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. You touched on a good point there, Kurt. So Weir's, in our service centers, we deal with a lot of smaller customers. Nothing, most of our customers aren't big fleets like yourself, because for the reasons you've already outlined, you've got infrastructure, you have scale, you have technology, you have focus. And our customers, a lot of our customers are in building materials delivery, or, they're in some other business, but they need trucks in order to get their products and services delivered to customers. And, it's multiple times I've seen customers where they buy equipment, fresh equipment, and they kind of put preventive maintenance on the back burner. They talk about, well, I just got some new equipment, so it's under warranty, it's not going to fail on me. And then inevitably down the road, that equipment it's not been well maintained, and problems pop up. So could you just talk to, your philosophy, getting new equipment in? Do you treat a new piece of equipment differently on a preventive maintenance versus an older piece of equipment, or is everything, and just how do you feel about that?
Everything in our fleet, everything is treated exactly the same from the first mile to the millionth mile. Okay. And we really view preventative maintenance as kind of the way to keep the tool to keep equipment healthy. So, as a former mechanic, there was a proper tool for every job. Preventative maintenance is that tool that's going to keep the fleet healthy. If we have a truck, if somebody were to pull a new truck in, or we have a new truck come in, the first thing we do is give it a PM. And one thing I want to mention, and I'm not sure if this was mentioned earlier, but a PM is a lot more than an oil change.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, in the older days, that's what it was. Before emissions engines, it was an oil change. You checked a couple of different things, you greased your driveline. There was some more to it, but as we get into emissions engine, electronic engines, a PM is a lot more than an oil change. A PM is the oil change is just the fluid check and change. The actual preventative maintenance part is all of this electronic stuff, the after treatment system, all this new technology that's on there, making sure it's working properly. It's added quite a price tag to the equipment, and it's making sure that all of that technology, especially that after treatment system, I can't say it enough. Making sure that after treatment system is healthy from day one is really important when you get up above that 500K standpoint.
Yeah. It's again, I just like the back and forth, being on the service provider side, being on the user side. There's two customer, or questions, I should say, two questions customers often ask us when we're newly engaging them. And one is, how much is your oil change or preventive maintenance? And the other one is, what's your labor rate? And as we've learned over time, the reason that is a lot of customers simply don't know the technical questions to ask. I mean, those are two easy, like low hanging fruit questions to ask, and yet they're not necessarily the right questions to ask. I mean, the focus should be on preventive maintenance, and maybe the question should be, tell me about your preventive maintenance, how thorough, how quality of it is. What do you guys believe in terms of your preventive maintenance versus how much does it cost? And labor rates there's a lot of training and tooling and all the things that you talk about, specialization that goes into that experience as well. So interesting. Yeah, good stuff.
That's a great point.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to our second episode of Trucks Roll Podcast with Kurt Dunn. We've got one more episode. In the meantime, if you need help keeping your trucks on the road with good maintenance and repair services, please go to Weirs.com. Check out what we have to offer. We'd love to talk to you and be part of the solution. And always remember, we're here to help your trucks roll.